Cancer became a political issue during President Richard Nixon administration. In 1971, President Richard Nixon launched the war on cancer by signing National Cancer Act. Well, then he promised American people that no money will be withdrawn to fight cancer. And by 200th anniversary of the United States, we will have cancer cure. Well, most of the people agreed that this war on cancer was like medical Vietnam. But I prove to you that not necessarily. This war on cancer was helpful. Well, for a number of years after that, there was nothing important happening regarding political initiative. However, in 2016, President Barack Obama initiated the White House Cancer Moonshot. So far, it did not materialize. Then finally, last year, President Donald Trump signed into law the Right to Try Act. And this year, he admitted that we are going to cure cancer. I think if he will stay in the government, he may be able to do it. Well, President Nixon's war on cancer helped me greatly, and this was very good timing in my arrival to the United States. In 1970, I immigrated to the United States and brought with me the samples of peptides which I discovered in blood of healthy people and which were missing in cancer patients. One of the prominent doctors, Dr. Julian Whitaker, compared this discovery to, like, suddenly somebody would say, well, I discovered 39 new islands in the South Pacific. Well, that's what happened when I came to US in 1970. I brought with me the samples of peptides and $20 to make the living. Well, it may not be much, but I found myself in Bronx, New York. If you have some New Yorkers in the audience, they would admit that it's better not to have a lot of money in Bronx, New York, because you may not live long. Well, the next Friday it will be anniversary, 49th anniversary of my coming to Houston, where I received a job at Baylor College of Medicine. My main agenda was how to survive and how to speak English, because I didn't have English at school, so you have to forgive me my English, but I hope you can understand. 3 months later, I was listening to the President Nixon declaration on the war of cancer. I was 27 years old. I felt, well, why not? I tried. I put together a grant application. I was very surprised that this was approved. And I was appointed principal investigator for the project to study the peptides which I discovered to see if they can fight cancer. I was supervising a distinguished team of researchers, both at Baylor College of Medicine and MD Anderson Treatment Center in Houston. I was humbled by this because some of these people were world-renowned researchers, and they were about the age of my father. But anyway, we had a great cooperation. Another thing happened. Across the corridor from my laboratory at Baylor, there was a laboratory of 2 Nobel Prize winners. They left Baylor, but behind them there was equipment which was gathered in dust in the warehouse. Well, I found I can use this equipment. I got this equipment. It helped me greatly to move forward with my work. So you can be surprised, but ultimately this was in Anaheim, California, in 1976, when I presented my research to a great audience. 19,000 doctors and researchers attended this meeting. This was the annual meeting of the American Societies for Experimental Biology. And I made a presentation on peptides, which I named anti-neoplastons, or ANP, which can kill cancer cells without damaging normal cells. This was something everybody was waiting for. Well, here you have natural substances in human body, and they can kill cancer cells without killing normal cells. Well, the name of the game at that time was chemotherapy, which was killing both cancer cells and normal cells. My presentation was picked up out of 4,000 presentations as very important by Associated Press, and they spread the news all over the world. Well, I was basking with glory at that time for something like 8 months. I received awards, and there are articles all over the world about such discovery. And I moved forward very rapidly. I already had animal testing which proved that these are non-toxic substances. So we proceeded with the treatment of the first patient by the end of 1976. And we had first cured patients with very bad cancers the next year. So ultimately, the President Nixon promise to cure cancer was fulfilled to some extent. For $55,000, which was given to our research, base, versus $1.6 billion, which was given for the war on cancer. I think we saved a lot of money for the government at that time. So, thank you. Well, I was expecting that such time of glory will not last long, because I read what happened to the other medical researchers. I knew that after this short period of enthusiasm, there will be a long period of struggle. Everybody will attack the inventor if you are talking about substantial discovery. And then you have a chance to live only if you survive your critics. So that's why I thought I better embark on the research on aging so that I can live longer to fulfill this project. And that's what I did, in addition to work on cancer. So what happened next was a long period of time of harassment, persecution, and attempts to put us out of business and even to put me to prison for life. Well, Greeks called this period peripetia, which means the times of trouble. Basically, it was 40 years of war, quote unquote, which was like 40 years of going to the promised land. And finally, at this moment, we can see the glimpse of the promised land. And we even know the gate to this promised land, which is Anaheim, California, where I am presented this research to you. Well, I was attacked by numerous federal and state agencies which were pushed by pharmaceutical companies, by large medical institutions. But finally, we survived all of these struggles, and now we are enjoying peace, and we are moving forward. The access to treatment which was discovered was made very difficult. It was limited to clinical trials, which had very strict criteria, and only some patients could be admitted. Well, finally, the war on cancer opened the gate, and it permitted the patients with terminal cancer to have access to the treatment with antineoplastons, and that's what we used right away. Well, this was on May 22nd last year, when Congress passed Right to Try law, which was signed by President Donald Trump. Millions of Americans who have been told that there are no options for cancer therapy received the opportunity for possible effective investigational cancer treatment. This was up to the doctors to decide if such treatment can be given, instead of filing numerous papers to the government and begging for permission so that patients can be treated, and spending sometimes even 6 months to have the answer. During this time, these patients usually were dead. But the right to try helped greatly these patients. But it wasn't really initial action of President Trump. This was the action of American people. By the time there was a federal law to try, in most of the states there were state laws, the right to try. And this was the action of people across America to approve such laws at the state level. In Texas, the right to try became effective on June 16, 2015, and permitted to treat patients with investigational treatment like antineoplastons, simply these patients needs to be terminal patients. The other patients were not permitted to take such treatment. Terminal patients, according to Texas law, are those who have estimated survival for 6 months or less. So I use this law, and we are able to save numerous lives. But before we discuss the results, I would like to summarize what is really causing cancer. Cancer is caused by numerous mutated genes. In every cancer, there are from 40 to 650 mutated genes, and these genes can be subdivided on 2 main categories. In cancer, there's increased activity of oncogenes, which promote cancer, and there's decreased activity of tumor suppressor genes, which fight cancer. And this is the equation for successful cancer growth. Logically, if you like to beat cancer, you need to go reverse. Downgrade oncogenes, upgrade tumor suppressor genes, and cancer may go away.